We just need to move past the failed policies that we have proven don't work.
Madam Vice President, you just laid out your economic vision for the future.
Yeah.
But still, there are lots of Americans who don't see themselves in your plans. For those who say these policies aren't for me, what do you say to them?
Well, if you are hardworking, if you have the dreams and the ambitions and the aspirations of what I believe you do, you're in my plan. You know, I have to tell you, I really love and am so energized by what I know to be the spirit and character of the American people. We have ambition. We have aspirations. We have dreams.
The first one, just a fact check. Okay. Because your opponent
there is
almost
no little
every
job.
day. Okay,
there's no such thing as a little job.
Okay, fair. Because your opponent almost every day seems to be talking about this. So I just want to ask you yes or no. At any point in your life, have you served 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, working at a McDonald's? Yes or no? That's it.
I have.
Okay. Now the other job.
But it was not a small job. Like, I did the fries. I mean, yes, but I did.
Meanwhile,
are bad. Trump is, I guess, bad. The people who support Trump are bad. The billionaires that she goes around with, I guess, are good. I think it's a very muddled thing, and I still don't understand. I think today was a miss for Harris. I mean, Joe Biden went on The View today and said he delegated all sorts of authority to her on domestic policy. We know that the Biden administration is not popular on domestic and economic policy. She gave a speech today saying we've got to move past the policies that people think have failed. Well, people think the last 4 years are a failure. And from what I can tell from this interview tonight, which was really a home game, I mean, going on with this particular interviewer was like effectively interviewing with her campaign's press secretary. She had nothing new to say on the economy beyond this ridiculous pablum. You want to talk about aspirations and dreams? They're crushed in this country because of inflation, and these kinds of interviews and the day that she had today are not going to solve it.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the latest Kamala Harris interview, this time on MSNBC, okay? Talk about home field advantage, right? This is the most home field advantage that one could possibly imagine, right? I mean, MSNBC, they're just a full-blown propaganda outlet for the Democrat Party at this point. They don't even pretend to be news, okay? They don't do news at all, right? I'm not even sure how you call it a news channel, okay? I think you probably would be more accurate to describe it as a glorified YouTube channel at this point, right? That is what MSNBC has become, okay? So Kamala Harris has run to the glorified YouTube channel, MSNBC, to do an interview with Stephanie Ruhle, okay? Who I believe is one of these Trump deranged commentators who focuses more on the economy, right, and finance and stuff like that. And let's just say that Kamala Harris did not impress Stephanie Ruhle, at least in her initial impressions of Kamala and her handling of the issues, the economy, her plans to actually fix things, okay? Because just like all of her interviews, Kamala has a hard time actually answering questions when asked directly by the interviewers about what she's going to do in order to accomplish the things that she plans that she's going to accomplish. Take a look.
Expanding that child tax credit, or you mentioned housing before, giving that extra money for a first home. If you can't raise corporate taxes, or if GOP takes control of the Senate, where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to make sure that the biggest corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. That's just it. It's about paying their fair share. I am not mad at anyone for achieving success, but everyone should pay their fair share. And it is not right that the teachers and the firefighters that I meet every day across our country are paying a higher tax than the richest people in our country.
Bill Gates just said it this week. If he was in charge of taxes, he would have paid more. But how do you find that line to make sure corporations are paying their fair share, but they're not leaving our country?
Well, listen, I work with a lot of CEOs. I have spent a lot of time with CEOs, and I'm going to tell you that the business leaders who are actually part of the engine of America's economy agree that people should pay their fair share. They also agree that when we look at a plan such as mine that is about investing in the middle class, investing in new industries, investing in bringing down costs, invest in entrepreneurs like small businesses, that the overall economy is stronger and everyone benefits.
A few moments later.
Talk about that answer.
I do, but here's what's a little tricky. She doesn't answer the question around if the GOP is controlling the Senate, if she can't raise corporate taxes, where is she going to get the money from, to expand the child tax credit and do all the things she wants to do? And she says, we just have to do it. And that's great, and that's a campaign promise. But the issue is, if it means we're just going to borrow again, then what we're doing is we're just never addressing the deficit. And back in the days when you were a proud Republican, debts and deficits mattered.
Yeah, so when you've lost MSDNC, then yeah, you're in trouble, right? You're in deep, deep, deep trouble. When after the interview, the MSNBC propagandist is admitting that, yeah, she just didn't answer the question. But don't worry, MSNBC is already trying to clean up Stephanie Ruhle going off script by admitting that Kamala Harris left a lot to be desired when it comes to her answers. But it's okay. It's okay because the issues that we're dealing with aren't direct and clear. So therefore, it's okay for her to give word salads and unclear answers to questions.
Work, and one could watch that and say, well, she didn't give a clear, direct answer. That's okay, because we are not talking about clear or direct issues.
And this is something that happened throughout this whole interview. She basically didn't answer any questions, really. Like, for example, she was asked about her Soviet-style price controls to fight price gouging that's non-existent. And she basically had nothing.
Prices are still high.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You said you want to take this on by going after those who engage in price gouging.
Yeah.
But as somebody who supports free markets, who's a capitalist, how do you go after price gouging without implementing price controls? Because once we get in this zone, people start to get worried and they say, I don't know what she stands for.
So just to be very frank, I am never going to apologize for going after companies and corporations that take advantage of the desperation of the American people. And as Attorney General, I saw this happen. In the midst of an emergency, whether it be an extreme weather event or even the pandemic, we saw it, where those few companies, not the majority, not most, but those few companies that would take advantage of the desperation of people and jack up prices. Yeah, I'm going to go after them. Yes, I'm going to go after them. And that is part of a much more comprehensive plan on what we can do to bring down the cost of living, including housing, including the everyday needs of the American people.
Kamala Harris, because she doesn't have any talent, she has to basically resort to lying about Trump, lying about his plans and what he wants to do and what happened in this administration, because she cannot say with a straight face that the Bidenomics agenda, which that is what she supports, is going to be Bidenomics tax and spend 2.0, has resulted in Americans being better off today than they were under President Trump. So again, she has to completely just lie about the Trump economy and the Trump presidency. Take a look.
Over the last 4 years, there have been tremendous economic wins, and you've just laid out a big plan. But still, polling shows that most likely voters still think Donald Trump is better to handle the economy. Why do you think that is?
Well, here's what I know in terms of the facts. Donald Trump left us with the worst economy since the Great Depression when you look at, for example, the employment numbers.
It was during COVID, and employment was so high because we shut down the government, we shut down the country.
Even before the pandemic, he lost manufacturing jobs by most people's estimates, at least 200,000. He lost manufacturing plants. Ask the auto workers how he lost auto plants. We have grown over 20 new auto plants. He has an agenda. Let's just deal with it right now going forward, not to mention what happened in the past. He has an agenda that would include making it more difficult for workers to earn overtime, an agenda that would include cutting off access to small business loans for small businesses, an agenda that includes tariffs to the point that the average working person will spend 20% more on everyday necessities, and an estimated $4,000 more a year on those everyday necessities, to the point that top economists in our country, from Nobel laureates to people at Moody's and Goldman Sachs, have compared my plan with his and said my plan would grow the economy, his would shrink the economy. Some of them have actually assessed that his plan would increase inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. So the facts remain that Donald Trump has a history of taking care of very rich people. And I'm not mad at anybody for being rich, but they should pay their fair share. But tax cuts for the billionaires and the top corporations in our country, and then not really paying much attention to middle-class families. My perspective on the economy is when you grow the middle class, America's economy is stronger. And there's empirical evidence to prove my point correct.
Then let me ask you about taxes, because lots of people will say, I don't like Donald Trump, but he cut my taxes. He didn't just cut corporate taxes, he cut individual taxes. Now, that expires next year, and there's some people confused saying, I don't know what's going to happen next year. Under a Harris administration, at what income level should someone expect their taxes to go up? And that state and local tax deduction that's currently capped and matters to a lot of people in blue states, are you going to lift that cap?
So, first of all, when it relates to anybody making less than $400,000 a year, your taxes will not go up. Your taxes will not go up. And in fact, under my plan, taxes for 100 million Americans will actually be cut, including $6,000 a year for young couples for the first year of their child's life in a tax cut, a tax credit, essentially, by expansion of the child tax credit.
Yeah, so I love the fact that you have mainstream liberal media outlets like MSNBC and CNN. Even they are not going for the clear and obvious lie from the Democrats about Trump's economy, which is to basically blame Trump and to say that, well, it was his fault that all the job losses occurred due to the pandemic, as if it was Trump's fault that COVID happened in the first place. And what you're saying in these interviews is when Democrats trot out this lie about the Trump economy, basically blaming Trump for the job losses that happened as a result of the pandemic, these interviewers are quickly adding context and saying, well, yeah, that happened during the pandemic, though. Like, that happened because of the pandemic. And when this happens, Democrats tend to get triggered. Like, for example, Nancy Pelosi accused an MSNBC host of being a Trump apologist for basically adding context when she tried to trot out this lie, right, and to blame Trump for the job losses that happened because of the pandemic. And Kamala Harris obviously got triggered as well, too, because she just started straight up lying. She said, well, before the pandemic, Trump was losing so many manufacturing jobs, even though that's just not true at all. Like, that's just a flat out lie, because as you can see, this is the chart of manufacturing job growth, total manufacturing jobs under Obama and under Trump. Clearly, you can see under Trump, it was growing exponentially until it fell off due to the pandemic, right? Clear as day, okay? And it was coming back under Trump because of the recovery from the pandemic, and it continued to climb. So Kamala Harris told a whole bunch of lies in that segment there, including that Trump wants to make it harder for people to work overtime when he literally proposed getting rid of taxes on overtime, which in my opinion is an amazing policy proposal from Trump. She also talked about how Goldman Sachs claimed that under her plan, the economy would grow, and under Trump's plan, the economy would shrink, when Goldman came out and said, no, that actually was just an individual analyst report, and that's not what the report said at all, right? The report actually really said there really wouldn't be that much of a difference between the two plans, which again, I disagree with the conclusion there. I think there's a clear difference. Trump's plan is much better than Kamala's, but Kamala's just even lying about what the big banks are saying about her economic plan, right? But the part of her answer here that I found to be super fascinating, super funny, is because while she's claiming that Trump's tax cuts were only for the rich, which is an outright lie, by the way, and you know it's a lie because right after she claimed that, Stephanie Ruhle moved into the next question that straight up disproves what Kamala just said, okay? Because Stephanie Ruhle says, what are you going to do about those people who are concerned about their individual tax rates going up? Because the Trump tax cuts are set to expire in 2025, right? And Democrats are going to face a lot of pressure in regards to whether or not they're going to extend those tax cuts, because those tax cuts weren't just for the rich. Trump cut taxes across the board, okay, for individuals. Are Democrats going to extend those tax cuts or let them expire? If they let them expire, then the middle class, they're going to have their taxes increase, right? And Stephanie Ruhle kind of asked Kamala Harris about that in a very roundabout way, the most softball way possible, because what she really should have asked Kamala Harris was, are you going to let the Trump tax cuts for the middle class expire, right? But she didn't do that. What she asked was, well, under the Harris administration, at what income level should people expect their taxes to go up, right? Which, again, is a much more softball question than just asking her straight up, are you going to let the Trump tax cuts expire, right? Because Stephanie Ruhle just admitted that, yeah, those tax cuts were for the middle class too, right? They weren't just for the rich. Again, it's amazing. But Kamala Harris gives the same canned answer that Biden gives on this, which is that if you make less than $400,000 a year, then your taxes aren't going to go up. But again, if Kamala lets the Trump tax cuts expire, then your taxes will go up, right? Which is what Stephanie Ruhle should have asked Kamala Harris directly, right? She should have just asked Kamala Harris directly, will she extend the Trump tax cuts? Okay, but she didn't do that, okay? Because, again, this is propaganda. This is not a real interview, right? Again, even in the softball settings, right, the softball questions that Kamala is getting, she still is unable to knock it out the park, right? Even though MSNBC is trying to finesse on her behalf, okay? So not only is she basically trying to trash Trump and his economy, right? She's also blaming Trump for the fact that the Biden administration destroyed the border, right? Their open border policies that have allowed illegals to come into this country unfettered at a rate that we've never seen before. She takes no responsibility for it. Although she was border czar, it's Trump's fault, according to Kamala Harris.
There are people there that are stressed, that feel that they're at capacity. Communities around the country that have legal immigration, many have said, we're at capacity. And many feel like the government has said to them, well, adapt, sit down, be quiet. This is how it is. What would a Harris administration do for those communities who've taken in many, many legal immigrants but are at capacity?
Well, first of all, we do have a broken immigration system, and it needs to be fixed. And if we take a step back, months ago, some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress came together with others, proposed a border security bill. That would have put 1,500 new border agents on the border to help those hardworking border agents who are there right now working around the clock. Would have put more money into stemming the flow of fentanyl, which is killing Americans around our country and devastating communities. Would have put more resources into our ability to prosecute transnational criminal organizations, which in my career I've prosecuted. Donald Trump got word of the bill, realized it was going to fix a problem he wanted to run on, and told him to kill the bill, don't put it up for a vote. He killed a bill that would have actually been a solution because he wants to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And that's part of what needs to be addressed. And my pledge is that when elected president, if the American people will have me, I will bring that bill back and I will sign it into law. And we need a comprehensive plan that includes what we need to do to fortify not only our border, but deal with the fact that we also need to create pathways for people to earn citizenship.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Another disaster answer from Kamala Harris. She's just not capable of answering questions directly, right? I just don't think she has the ability to do so, because what she was asked was specifically about what would she do to help the communities that are already at capacity with legal immigrants, right? Which that's the way that MSNBC is framing it. What they actually really mean are illegal immigrants, right? Disguised as legal immigrants, okay? That's really what's happening here. But again, they have to softball it here in the most MSDNC way possible. She specifically asked, what would you do to help alleviate that problem, right? That issue. They're already at capacity. What are you going to do, right? She didn't answer the question. Instead, she just defaults to blaming Trump for why the Democrats couldn't pass the border bill that would not stop illegal immigration, right? That would actually normalize illegal immigration. You would still be allowing illegals into the country under that bill, which would not help out those communities that are at capacity. In fact, it would actually make the problem worse because they'd be stuffing more illegals into these communities that are at capacity, right? That's exactly what would happen, okay? So she didn't answer the question. She defaults to blaming Trump, right? And then she talks about how she wants to give the illegals amnesty, right? A pathway to citizenship, which again is just amnesty. Hey, you can just stay here forever, right? And you can become a citizen and eventually you can vote and yada, yada, yada. This is what she actually wants to do, right? This is what she wants to do. Again, this is just an all-around disaster interview from Kamala Harris. And it's just not going to move the needle, man, right? It's just not going to. If this is what she's going to do in regards to trying to push back against the criticisms of her not talking to the media, if all she's going to do is softball after softball after softball interview where she doesn't answer questions, she might as well not do interviews because this is not helping, right? It's definitely not going to help her at all. If anything, it's probably making things worse. Because the only thing that I'm hearing from Kamala Harris is a whole lot of confusion, a whole lot of giveaways that she has no clue how she's going to get past, how she's going to pay for, and a lot of finger pointing at Trump. But we have not heard anything from her in regards to explaining her prior positions and what she believed before in the past in regards to confiscating guns, in regards to being an extremist on illegal immigration, giving away free health care to illegals. All these things she supported before in the past, she still has not answered questions about why she changed, if she's changed, right? The most pressing questions that people have for Kamala Harris, she doesn't answer them, right? She doesn't answer them. I mean, let's be fair. She doesn't really get asked these questions by the media either, but the questions that she is being asked, she's not answering them. She's not. She's giving the same canned answers over and over and over again. And, you know, I really think that this is the reason why when you look at the issue of the economy, immigration, this is why she's a disaster, right? This is why Trump is destroying her. Also on top of that, Trump has a proven track record of just being better, right? So there's really nothing she can say or do to beat Trump on these issues. But I'm just saying maybe she could do a little bit better if she actually came off as competent. If she actually came off as somebody that had plans, that knew what she was doing, that's not in over her skis. But that's not what's happening right now. She comes off as somebody that's in over her skis because even in these softball interviews, she just cannot seem to knock it out the park, okay? And it's getting to the point where it's sad, right? It really is sad watching Kamala Harris struggle to get her moment that she just doesn't have the ability to obtain. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.